Seller negotiation fundamentals. This is by far one of the most important skills you'll learn as a real estate investor, and it will directly determine how much money you make at the end of the day. I want to start with something that might sound simple, but this is where a lot of investors mess up, and that's reading a script verbatim or reading a script word for word. Scripts are not bad, but blindly just reading a script can be dangerous because you might come across as robotic or fake or just salesy. Instead of memorizing scripts, you want to operate off bullet points and you want structure without being too rigid. You should know where the conversation is going, but you got to remain flexible on how you get there because every seller conversation is different. There's no two sellers that are the same, no two situations are the same, no two motivations are the same. The goal is not to dominate the call, and of course the goal is not to try to close hard. The goal is to understand what's going on. Everything in negotiation starts with rapport, and I know you've heard this 100 times. It's in every sales book and sales seminar that you've probably attended, but what I want to teach you is the importance of building authentic rapport. We're never trying to fake it or build fake rapport or force rapport. I believe every human has spidey senses, and this is a built-in bullshit detector, and it fires instantly the moment someone is not being real. So the moment you're trying to play games, the seller feels it, and that's why authentic rapport matters. So it's going to disarm the bullshit detector, and it's going to activate the honesty detector. One of the easiest ways to do this is to share something real that's happening right now in the moment, something that's actually happening to you. So if I'm driving and the traffic is terrible, I might say, hey, I'm driving on the 670 right now, the potholes are terrible, and it's bumper to bumper traffic, or something like that. That's real, this is not a tactic, it's just life, and the seller knows it because they have been in this situation as well. You're not trying to impress them, this immediately lowers their guard, and they know that you're a real human being, not just a salesperson who's reading a script. Once rapport is established, I always assume that the seller is shopping around, because they usually are. Typically, sellers are talking to multiple people, they're hearing different stories, and they're trying to figure out who's legit. So I want to establish credibility early without sounding arrogant and without sounding salesy. I'll say something like, we have more testimonials than most companies because we actually get stuff done. And then I'll follow with, you know why people like working with us? It's because we don't waste people's time. You sound like somebody who doesn't like their time wasted. Am I right? They're always going to agree because it's true. Nobody wants their time wasted. Now we transition into the most important part, which is understanding the seller's situation and understanding the seller's motivation. But here's the mistake that most investors make. They push too hard too early and the seller shuts down. Sometimes it's too early for the seller to air out their dirty laundry, and that's okay. So I open the door, but I give them an out. I let them choose the path. I'll say something like, can you give me a 10,000-foot overview of the house, the situation, and what you're looking to do? The question does something powerful because it invites motivation, but it doesn't force it. If they want to talk about their problem, great, that's perfect, that's exactly what we want because we're real estate investors, and what that means is we're problem solvers at the end of the day. We need to understand their problem if we're going to help them overcome their challenge. But sometimes the seller chooses a different path and they want to start selling you the house. They want to talk about the upgrades, they want to talk about the neighborhood, they want to talk about how great the property is, and that's fine too because now the roles have reversed. Now they're trying to close you. All the pressure's gone. You're no longer the pushy salesperson, you're now the reluctant buyer. That shift alone can completely change the dynamic of the call and increase trust. Next, and this part is extremely important, you need to explain your process early. You want to train the seller on how you make offers and how deals actually work. I'll explain something like this. We keep everything really simple and convenient. There's no fine print. I send a very basic purchase and sale agreement right to your email. You can access it right from your smartphone, and it only takes a few minutes. And as soon as that's done, my transaction coordinator will call you, set up the pictures, and set up the next steps. Why do we do this early? It's because later, now nothing is a surprise to the seller. When it's time to send them the contract, they already know exactly what you mean, and you've trained them on what the next steps are going to be. Now let's talk about the numbers because this is where negotiation really happens, and this is where the money is made. We always always start with wholesale offers. These are the all cash offers. It's going to be the lowest number, and cash is powerful, but you have to explain why you're offering such a low number. You have to justify your cash offer. You can't just throw a number at the seller. They're immediately going to get defensive. You have to tell them this is all cash. There's no commissions. There's no repairs. There's no fees. There's no waiting on a buyer. There's certainty that comes with this. If they bring up Zillow, which a lot of sellers do, because a lot of sellers these days do their homework and do their research, don't fight it. Instead, educate them, explain context, and never have confrontation. You might say, Zillow values are based on retail sales, and these are houses that are fully fixed up, and most of these houses sell with realtors, so there's usually around 10% in fees and commissions taken right off the top. So if Zillow says your house is worth $200,000 and the house needs $20,000 in work, you're not netting $200,000. You're actually getting closer to $180,000, and that's after repairs and months of potential hassle dealing with buyers and realtors. So now we're talking about reality. This is the current value, the real value, the market value, not the fantasy value. And then you ask the most important question. If I can pay you all cash with no fees, no repairs, no commissions, and I can close quickly, what's the least you'd take? That's it. No pressure, just a question. And now you let them talk. You sit back, you listen, you stay calm. If the number works for a wholesale deal, great, we move forward. If it doesn't, that's where novations come into play, and we'll go deeper on that later. The key is this. Negotiation is not manipulation, it's simply clarity. Your job is to remove confusion, remove friction, and solve problems. You're going to learn the most by doing, by having real conversations, and by making real offers. Stick around because we're going to be going deep into seller negotiation, wholesale versus novation, and how to get contracts right over the phone.